Hello everybody, I want to make this quick video about packaging your fonts. Now, if you don't package your fonts, when you call this presentation up, this is a very boring presentation by the way, but when you call your presentation up on a different computer, the fonts will be different. So right here I have 2 lines, it might appear as 3 lines. The font may be all wonky or funny, it's not the one that I specified, and you might sometimes see it being highlighted in pink or another color. Well, that's because fonts are licensed, meaning that they are unique to the computer that they are installed on. Despite what people tend to believe about fonts, they are something that's handled through copyright law. So they're on a computer, they're installed on that particular computer, and that's a computer that they're really set to go with. It's not necessarily with the application, although many applications have comment fonts, but you can't count on it on every single computer unless it has the identical install. So, real life story, when I was doing my master's thesis presentation, I had a presentation much like this on a flash drive. I was going to the hall where I was going to present this a day in advance, and good thing I checked it because none of the fonts appeared correctly. They all remapped. And so that I knew then to go back to my home computer that I did it on, package those fonts, then install them on the computer that I was going to do a presentation on. The interesting thing about PowerPoint is PowerPoint really has a feature built into it that embeds the fonts. In other words, it will include those font files with it. However, something that I have found professionally is that it only works like 80% of the time. And that seems like really good odds, except for the 20% of the time when you need it to work correctly, and it does not. So I want to cover the 2 ways to ensure that the fonts that you utilized in this presentation are correct. And packaging fonts, you want to ensure that the fonts you use in your presentation will appear across different computers. You need to embed your fonts into your presentation. Sometimes fonts cannot or will not be embedded. That's the problem, although they have the feature built into PowerPoint to embed the fonts. So to be safe, I'm advising all students, no matter what, to package your fonts for every possible outcome or scenario. And that's simply just placing a copy of your font files from your computer's system folder that contains the fonts into the folder that you are packaging your PowerPoint presentation, and then unpacking or taking those font files out of the folder and installing them on the computer you're going to do the presentation on first. That is a best practice. So here we go. Now, I do need to say that this is a Macintosh running PowerPoint. And I don't know if your version of the Macintosh will have the exact sort of same software release version of it, or if you're on a Windows machine, it may appear differently. That's one of the banes of PowerPoint, its existence in my world, is that it's not consistent. Each edition varies slightly. So what I'm about to show you may have to be slightly translated if you're on a Windows machine. I am on a Mac machine. So at the top, you'll see the PowerPoint menu. Now, this is on Macintoshes only. I believe on Windows devices, you have to locate where the preferences is. And I think it's either under the file or the edit menu, to be quite honest. So I'm going to go underneath the PowerPoint menu here to preferences. Inside the preferences, you'll notice all the different preferences that relate to this program. I'm going to want to select the ones underneath Save. And on the Macintosh, it's a little disk icon. Again, this is the preferences. It's not the menu command. So I'm coming to the preferences. I'm going to click on Save here, and you'll see some of the save options. This is the one that's important. It says Font Embedding. Font Embedding. And what I want to do is I want to click or check Embed Fonts in the file. And you've got a couple options here. Embed only the characters used in the presentation. It says best for keeping the file size small. Or embed all the characters that are used by the software here, in other words, PowerPoint, which it says is best for editing by other people. I'm going to check this option. And now when I go to save my file, it should embed, in other words, really engulf this font into the package. However, folks, to be safe, I am going to advise you to always package your fonts. So we've covered the embedding here. We're going to go to packaging. To package your fonts, you need to locate where those fonts are in your system folder. Now, I again am working on a Macintosh, so I'm going to be demonstrating that. If you're on a Windows machine, the process is quite similar. You locate where all the font files are stored by your operating system, and you put a copy of them into a folder with this PowerPoint. So I'm going to go ahead and demo that in just a second using my Mac. So the font that we've used here in this presentation is Century Gothic. Okay, so Century Gothic is the one that we're going to want to include. I'm going to, and I have my window already opened in advance because I knew we're going to deal with this. I'm going into my operating system folder here. I'm going to go underneath where it says Library. And on a Macintosh, there's a font folder. Again, Windows has something quite similar. Okay, quite similar. It's a little bit sort of different location as to how you would access it, but the process of packaging it is going to be the same. So I want to locate Century, and I scroll through and I can see Century Gothic here. Century, which font was that again? Gosh darn it, I knew I would forget. It is Century Gothic. So I'm going to come and make sure that I select here Century Gothic. And what I would do is I would click and drag this into a folder where I saved my PowerPoint presentation just to be safe. Okay, and then I would compress, in other words, zip or rar the folder that contains the PowerPoint as well as this font. And then I would know that wherever I get to my location, maybe I'm flying out to Boston to give this presentation, at least a day before or maybe an hour before the presentation, I'm going to unzip that folder on the computer that I'm going to do the presentation on, make sure that that font is installed to be safe, and install it on that operating system. So that is the process if you are utilizing PowerPoint. PowerPoint does a little bit better job of embedding, but just to be safe, again, I would advise that everybody also add a copy of the fonts to their folder.